Water Cooler Wednesday. This is a very special episode because I have my good friend and actually my partner in a lot of ways, as I am a very happy client of this gentleman's organization. And today we are going to be speaking about what it takes to manage a team, not just virtually, but globally and virtually. So we're here with Wian Smith-Ventner, who is the founder of the Marketing Zoo. And this guy decided to pick up in the middle of the pandemic and move from South Africa to the Netherlands, leaving his organization and his team, I hope no hard feelings, behind. And so, and I can tell you from having a inside view here, that his team is incredibly engaged and just incredibly talented and committed, despite the fact that he abandoned them. So anyway, I'm only going to beat you up a little bit about that. So anyway, I thought that it would be incredibly valuable to hear from Wian and really get an idea of why he made this decision, what struggles he's seen, and how he's so successful throughout this pandemic. So let me formally introduce the man. Wian is the founder of the Marketing Zoo. He's a BCom Marketing Management graduate from the University of Johannesburg. Since 2008, Wian worked in the marketing and media industry by fulfilling various roles in professional structures. During this time, he took responsibility for some of South Africa's biggest artists and was involved in a lot of successful projects and events. Wian Smith Marketing was founded in 2014 and transformed into the Marketing Zoo in 2017. Teamwork makes the dream work is what he stands for, and building brands is one of his biggest passions. He lives, works, and sleeps by this. To be inspired is great. To inspire is incredible. This guy could write a calendar. In his zoo, inspirational calendar. In his zoo, any animal is welcome, and they use different strategies to create marketing in its wildest form around the world. Wian also always has big dreams, and if you ask him about those today, he'll tell you that anything is possible, and we will ask him about those. He always believed in thinking out of the box and enjoyed Entrepreneur's Day at school. He was only 20 when he had his first official business while having a side gig and studying full-time. The Marketing Zoo is operational in several countries around the world with a highly skilled team of young professionals at their head office in South Africa. Let's work hard, but have fun while we do it. Awesome. Wian, thank you so much for being here today. This is long overdue, and I'm so glad that you're able to be here.
Thanks so much, David. It's such an honor. And I had goosebumps when you were reading all of that. I couldn't believe that all of that happened in the past years. But thank you so much for highlighting that and for also having me on the show. I've got so much respect for you and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. And it is absolutely crazy that all of this stuff happened. And now it's been, like 2 years now almost, right? March will be 2 years of this. Is that right? Yeah. 2 years. So it's crazy when you really think about that and think about the fact that your entire society changed, your business changed, you moved to a different continent. Like that's really crazy and something we're going to get into. But we can't talk about that yet because that would be letting you off the hook when it comes to the next thing that we do here at the Water Cooler, as you well know, which is the 6 in 60. And for 6 in 60, we're going to ask you 6 rapid fire questions. You have 60 seconds, 1 minute to answer all of them. So these are not essay questions. They are quick, right off the top of your head questions. Are you ready for this?
I think so. Yes, let's do it.
And I tried to bribe a couple of your team members to give me some embarrassing questions to ask, and apparently they all want to stay employed, so they didn't give me any. So you are safe here. I just want you to know that. But without further ado, let's get into it. You work globally and have lived on at least two continents. If you could spend 2 weeks exploring any one country, where would you go?
America.
Have you been there?
Yes,
What
quickly.
is one thing that you would like to see stick around after this pandemic?
I think the passion for what we do.
You founded the marketing zoo. If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be and why? I know that's a cheesy question.
Definitely a monkey in a jungle and just to hop around and jump around and be free.
What notable trait? What? Give me one notable trait of your favorite boss of all time.
I would say, yeah, friendliness.
You work with a lot of musicians, so I'm not going to ask you like who's your favorite artist, but I do want to know your go-to karaoke song.
It's always something from Celine Dion.
Nice. During Zoom meetings, pants or pajamas?
Bands.
Hey, you made it in the time. First person ever to make it in the time. I don't know that we necessarily buy that you're wearing pants right now, and I'm not going to ask to see because this is a family show. But that was absolutely great. Why'd you choose America? Because you're speaking to mostly American audience.
Well, not only I really love the country as well, and I had a good time. I went to Los Angeles and Hollywood, and I just love the culture. I think it's much like South Africa, and it's a city, it's a country that I would definitely want to explore a bit more.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, if you come to Baltimore, you got a place to stay. We can save you a little bit on on
Helps a
hotels.
lot. Thank you so much.
So, all right, here we go. So, I really want to know your story and your backstory, and you told us a little bit about that just in your introduction. But maybe if we zoom forward a little bit and talk about specifically the transition, could you tell us a little bit about what the marketing zoo looked like right before 2020 and the pandemic? And then how things changed and what it looks like now in comparison.
Yeah, David, it's actually I haven't really sat down and thought about it. And while preparing for the interview, I actually thought about how things have been changing the last 2 years, and it's really crazy and also exciting at the same time to see how things have adapted. I would say pre-pandemic, we well personally, I found myself in a very much of a comfort zone. And also the business, after being open for a few years, we were in a really good place, and that made me realize that my passion is growing things. My
Mhm.
passion was never to become rich or successful. In my eyes, it's definitely not has it doesn't have something to do only with money. I always wanted to grow and become more, make a difference. And just before the pandemic, we found ourselves in a place in business and personally that it felt like we were a little bit, yeah, almost hit like a ceiling. And I think the pandemic just opened up my eyes in letting you think about what it is that you really want to make an impact on. Because I mean, I think suddenly we all realized, what if the world ends tomorrow?
Mhm.
Are we really making a difference? So yeah, it changed a lot of thought in my head as well.
That's really fascinating because, we talk so much now. I know I personally do because that's my job, but everybody is talking so much now about burnout and about stress and about this overload as things are changing so quickly and there's so much on our plates. But what you're talking about, that stagnation, can a lot of times be just as uncomfortable and just as I don't know if I want to use the word toxic, but in a way toxic that you start thinking, what am I doing here, and start sleeping in a little bit and becoming less invested and the passion starts to die. So is that what
Mhm.
you're describing? Is that what was happening kind of before the pandemic, and then this was the kick in the pants you sort of needed?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you reach a point where you say to yourself, "Is this it? Is this it?"
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's definitely where I found myself in. And just reaching out, I mean, doing something, little that I know how uncomfortable it really would get, moving from one country to another. But still, yeah, if I look back, I mean, there's a lot of growth that happened.
Yeah, so while a lot of people fear change, you sort of embraced it and took it to the next level. How did you choose to move to the Netherlands?
It actually started with a like a quick thought. We were on holiday in Amsterdam and Netherlands for like 3 days before we moved here. And what happened was, yeah, obviously when Corona hit, it made you think a lot about where you are in your life now, where you want to be. And I always say to myself, you know what, I wanted to live abroad, but maybe that's something that you do when you are retired or so. You especially don't do it when you're quite comfortable in your
Hmm.
situation. And since visiting the Netherlands, we just felt a good connection with that, and I always wanted to expand into Europe. And then, yeah, when the pandemic hit, it made us think a little bit more. We explored some options, and just one door opened after the other. It wasn't even. It was a dream. It was like a far dream. We say, oh, you know what? Let's see if it can happen. We're
Hmm.
quite good for now, but let's try something. And the next thing we knew, we were packing to get on a plane.
Huh. So how did your family react to this? Maxie is saying, "What do you do when you're missing your family? Do you feel homesick, um, uh, being all the way away from home, so far from home?"
Yeah, I think that's the worst part about yeah, moving to another country is that you don't have that immediate environment like your family to quickly go to. I mean, on a Sunday afternoon, you could easily visit family or friends. It's completely. You never realize that they always say you never realize how big a moment is once it's done, and that's exactly what happens. You never realize how far someone can really be once you cannot reach them by jumping into a car.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been the toughest thing about it. Luckily for, I mean, WhatsApp video calls and all of these, I don't know how people did it in the old days, but luckily for that.
Right. Right. What kind of that's a great point though. What kind of technologies do you use to communicate back home and specifically with your teams?
I think WhatsApp is definitely the most clever thing since sliced bread. I love WhatsApp. And we also use Trello to manage projects on. Trello works really well for us. And then Microsoft Teams. I mean, yeah, it's great to get regular meetings done. So I think a combination of those three, Zoom as well. But yeah, I've been growing very fond of Microsoft Teams now, and in combination with the other platforms, works quite well.
And do you feel does the distance do you feel the distance because I know a lot of business owners and managers who before they brought their teams back to work they would literally go down to their office and sit in the office because they felt like they needed some sense of control and normalcy. When you finally decided that you were going to move away from the country, did that distance make it feel more real, and was there fear or anxiety involved in that in terms of separating yourself physically from your team and your office?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a big feeling of not having control anymore. Especially like pre-COVID, we all went to the office all the time. I mean, that was like the working space. You put on your working hat, and that's how things happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, with moving and people working from home and also moving out of the country, for a moment, it feels like you're really losing control.
Hmm.
But again, I'm not a fan of micromanaging people. So I think if you the moment that you adapt your mindset and you allow yourself to trust people, there's a lot of magic that happens in that. Even now, like with this interview, to me it feels like I'm somewhere in Baltimore now, and I think it's a mindset. You have to change that mindset and put yourself in a place where you want to be.
What do you think? What how do you have that mindset and other people like aren't there? A lot of people have been struggling with this. What advice would you have for them? Do you think you're just wired differently? Do you think it's maybe a generational thing? I know you're still a baby, but like what what do you think it is?
I think it's constant reminders to yourself It's definitely not a switch that you can put on or off. I mean, it took me in the previous years of my life. It also took me some while. A positive mindset was something that I struggled with when I were a lot younger, and I always use that example of like a snowball. The more it rolls over, the bigger it gets. And the snowball effect is also true for these type of feelings that you want to allow yourself to have. You need to constantly remind yourself about that and make a conscious decision to have that mindset and also adapt that mindset.
Right. Yeah, and it is that self-talk. I love that metaphor of the snowball, because that's true, and it's true about the negative self-talk, and it's true about the positive self-talk. And you also had time to grow a really effective team before you left and build that trust. And I imagine that was helpful. Have you hired new employees since the pandemic and since going virtually? And do you find that it's harder to build those relationships from afar?
Yeah, for sure. We've expanded a lot since COVID, which we're really thankful for. But yeah, one of the hardest things that I find is to if you don't know the person, first of all, to immediately trust that person. I haven't really appointed anyone that I didn't know well. I prefer to appoint someone which I know from some kind of framework. And yeah, but it's a difficult thing because I mean, you don't always have the opportunity in your immediate environment. And sometimes you do have to appoint someone without ever meeting them before and then to trust. But for me, I find it quite difficult. Yeah, you don't know the person well. You also don't know their work ethic. I mean, things look very much differently on a CV, yeah, than in real life. So that's something that I do find very hard. I haven't had a lot to deal with regarding that. I was lucky enough to always find someone in kind of an environment that I knew, which makes it a lot easier.
Great. So that we had spoken about that a couple weeks ago too, like reaching into your network. One of the issues that comes up potentially when you're reaching into your network is that it's really a diversity in all senses, even diversity of thought. It's sort of a diversity killer when you're leaning just into your inner circle. So it makes it harder to challenge the group think. Um, is there anything that you do to encourage more diversity in that selection process, and or encourage or discourage groupthink?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult yeah, it's not an easy decision to make, but also again it's a mindset change, and I think to trial and error. I mean that's the only way. Luckily, it's not like in the old days where you didn't have any freelancers or so. So a great way for a company to really try and test out something is to first do some freelance work with the person and see how that goes and the diversity that it brings, and then from there on, I think it's also a good like in a transition for the employee as well, because then you don't feel just connected to a contract and you can't get out of it before you have another job. It's something that happens slowly but surely.
Right. And so now your team, primarily back in South Africa, are they going into the office now, or are they fully virtual? How does that work?
Yeah, we've got a strange dynamic. I was of the idea that we're going completely virtual, only working from home. We appointed an MD in South Africa. She's amazing. She's really awesome. And she had another idea, and she told me that, you know what, Vian, we have to have that physical type of contact. Whereas I wanted to lean towards the whole adaptation side of let's close our office, we're going this route, and we're taking all of it. And I just believe that sometimes it's not as easy as giving up everything that you had and starting completely over. You have to have that transition. And he also then recommended, let's have an office as well. So what we're doing now is our staff is coming in 2 times a week. So we still allow people to do the remote working model, because I think especially since COVID, a lot of people had extra freedom from that, and it's important. You don't want no one wants to work in a toxic environment, and also no one likes being checked on the clock.
Yeah.
if you're working or not. So what we then do is we've also adapted our hours that you don't have to sit in traffic in the morning or in the afternoon. It's basically the middle period of the day. We have to be in office, we work productively, and then you have to manage your own time from that.
Mm. So I know that a lot of the research on virtual teams prior to 2020, when it was still almost a novelty in some ways, found that virtual teams work best when they start in person and then go their own way, because that's a catalyst for building trust. That somehow that face to face interaction is better built in person before going fully virtual. Um, and so you said you're having your people come together 2 times a week and 2 days a week. Everybody comes in the same 2 days?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
Well,
So
mostly the South African team, yeah.
so you're having that, but then you're not present for those. What kinds of things do you do to continue to build trust with your employees? Because I know, offline you talk a lot about the importance of trust and you trusting your employees, and you do have this incredible trust and ability to delegate. But trust also needs to go the other way. What do you do to
Mm.
manage trust both directions?
Yeah, I think it's quite important to also hear how someone is doing on a personal level. So I try and do that, to reach out to people on a no, I hate the word boss. I think it's a terrible word. Just to reach out on a humanly way, and just ask people how you're doing. Is everything going okay? What's happening in your life? Because I think that also builds a relationship. And yeah, luckily for technology, I mean, we've got like a Teams meeting every Monday morning where we all see each other. We get on the same page, so that helps a lot. And I also think when you're making a move like this, it's important to put structures in place, and that is exactly what our MD brought to the table as well. Because now it's more or less a type of a replacement for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what needed. I mean, it's what's needed. You cannot remove yourself from the situation and stay in the exact same trades. Something need to change, and that was a big game changer for me. I found it quite difficult as well, because especially when you've worked with clients for such a long time, to also give that over, it's very much of an emotional thing happening.
Yeah.
But once people realize that you won't be gone, you might just be a little bit less accessible, but you'll still be there. It puts everyone at ease.
Yeah. I imagine it's almost like sending your kid off to college, except you're the one going off to college. Right? And so it's your kid, but you're the one going away. I know things have been crazy the past 2 years. Long term plan, is there a plan to sort of pop in, to annually, semi? What are those plans like? Or nope, Zoom is good.
No, definitely no. I tend to go to South Africa at least 3 or 4 times a year. So since moving here, we've been back twice already, which made a big difference. Because you just have to show your presence as well, and it's also good for myself, not only for the team but also for myself,
Hmm.
just to still feel part and connected with the brand and the business. So that's definitely something. As we grow all over the globe, it will be much and so much important for me to get to all the teams and really spend some quality time there, with them as well.
Yeah, and I want to ask you. You just spoke about building the brand, and I want to zero in on that. But first, you're getting some love in the chat, so I wanted to share that. Thanks for keeping it real. Your client commitment and vision is reassuring in the marketing realm and beyond. I love it. Juanita says, "Love how open you are to adapt to the new post-pandemic work model." These are people that know and work with you, and I think that's a really good testimonial. Um, and I would back up everything they say. Right before we came on, you were saying like, or when we were on, you were saying I kind of feel like I'm in Baltimore, and there is that. We've built a relationship via Zoom and WhatsApp, etc. And I think that's really powerful to do. But when you talk about, so you are an expert in branding. I know that when I came to the Marketing Zoo, a mutual friend introduced us, and I checked out your website and saw, okay, this is a company that does what they do for their clients for themselves. It's just the marketing zoo and all the branding that goes behind that, and your commitment to that theme. And I loved everything about it and still do. And so you're a master brander, and you're branding for standalone artists and thought leaders and organizations as well. What about the internal branding? So you also talk a lot about building that culture. And
Mm.
so what we've been talking about is building trust, which is essential, and also building, how do we get the work done, and how do we hire? But how do you keep the culture alive at the marketing zoo, or does and does culture need to stay alive, or does it need to continue to grow and evolve?
I think it definitely needs to stay alive, and much of what comes from top management is what procures into the culture. And for me, I've always wanted to create a culture that is fun, that is positive, that is upbuilding, where people can enjoy what they are doing. It's all about passion. I've been in some circumstances myself where I just sticked around because it was a job. I
Mhm.
got a salary, so I just stick around for that. And I never want any of our employees to be in that position that they're just doing it because they have to do it. I really believe that there's a lot of magic that happens when people can actually enjoy themselves. And with the marketing zoo as well, we really, our culture is definitely to have fun and adapt and try new things. And we always tell our Zoolanders as well that anything is possible. You can, whatever, no idea is crazy. Give any idea if you have any recommendations, especially now of this remote model. We keep telling the people, and we had some great suggestions from our team about asking them. I mean, what works for you? We haven't done this before, so we also trying some things out. But we would like your input as well. And then they also feel part of the process, and they could make an impact as well. So I think internally, it's definitely something that needs to be managed and to be taken care of. And I always say that, in a company, your biggest assets are your employees. It's
Mhm.
not the office building that you own or the very expensive equipment that you have. It really is the people working in your company. That's the biggest asset. And if you have them involved, and if you have them feeling appreciated, it really goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic that's going to be becoming more and more relevant for organizations. You talked about bringing people on first as contractors, and then hiring them on as employees if that works out. We're moving more and more toward this gig economy, and that's been happening before COVID. And then COVID, like with everything else, sort of just put the pedal to the metal and started really exacerbating that, and driving it along, where it looks like we're getting there a lot faster. For a while, we obsessed over company culture, and I think we continue to obsess over company culture as we move toward the gig economy, and people are working for multiple organizations and things like that. Is culture eventually going to go away as something that we look to build in an organization? I personally hope not, but I want to know your
Mm.
thoughts on that, and especially standing here as a marketing CEO, where it's an industry where a lot of people are the CEO of their organization, and everybody else is contractor. They're all gig workers, and they just parse out the business. You made this decision to hire people and to build an organization with many people. Why did you do that, and do you think that that's here to stay?
I have to agree with you. I definitely hope not, but I do think that it's already starting to change. I mean, these days everyone can be a business owner and wants to be a business owner. You want your independence, and you don't want to work for someone. Well, a lot of people don't want to work for someone, and I just hope and believe that people will realize. I don't think entrepreneurship is meant for everyone.
Mhm.
It's definitely like everyone has their own kind of talents and ways to go, and I believe that it will sort itself out. But I think the organizational culture is something that will definitely change, and we would need to be attend of that. and make sure that we keep it intact. Because I think it will be getting more difficult. I mean, with remote working happening and people being able to have multiple jobs, depend on their own salaries, and that's definitely something that you will need to manage as a business. I think for us going forward as well, the current structure that we have going now will definitely also change. I mean, not we also don't want to lose great people by only giving them the option about either you work for us or you don't. We always try to find a middleman as well, and we have done that in the past, and it's been difficult, but I've seen that it is possible.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be really interesting to see where things go from here. We have a question. Was it hard for you to let go of some of the tasks? So we spoke a little bit about delegation. What was the most difficult thing to start delegating?
Well, it definitely it wasn't hard. It still is. Yeah, it's. I think OCD is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once you know that that's part of your journey as well, you can also manage that. It definitely was hard, especially not being there. I mean, it's always been easier giving a task, but when you can still look around someone's shoulder or type of physically make sure that it gets done. But now also giving a task over and then sitting all the way back in another country, and when the laptop screen closes, you've got no control. That
Mhm.
was quite difficult. And but I also found some comfort in that, and it's also a mindset that I had to change. I know that I cannot do, and since starting the company as well, I quickly realized that I cannot do everything myself. And also, even if someone, what's that rule of saying that even if someone only does about 60 or 70% of how you would have done it, it's still good enough.
Right.
And that helps me a lot. I think about that because I tend to be, I always put myself in a situation where I think to myself, is it worth it trying to or demotivating the Zoolander trying to get this thing perfect, or can we rather reach a high standard and move on to something else, so that the person doesn't get demotivated. And I've just often seen that. I mean, you might get one project 100% perfect, but all the rest, like dominoes, will there will just be no motivation,
Right.
and that's something that we have to balance out.
Yeah. And we have this question. What was the most difficult thing to deal with in your business when moving to the Netherlands? Was it the delegation generally, or was there something specific that was difficult for you?
I think from an internal part, it was definitely putting all our clients at ease in South Africa. I've been working very close with all the clients and putting them at ease that things won't change and the culture will still
Hmm.
stay the same and the standards and everything. That was quite difficult internally, and then externally as well, the language barrier.
Hmm.
I mean, in South Africa, there's a specific culture and the languages. I mean, we grow up in that area, so we know exactly how to handle it. But moving to a country like the Netherlands, I think that's also why I've always loved America, because then at least we can speak English. Um, but moving to a country like the Netherlands, where you have to learn a complete new language and a way of doing things, that was really tough.
Yeah. Yeah, and having to juggle that while trying to keep your life and business going, and those relationships, and assuring not just your employees, as you point out, but your clients as well.
Mhm.
I can imagine that would be extremely difficult.
Yeah, definitely, and it does something to your confidence as well. I mean, if you go into a meeting and you're quite prepared and you speak the language, whatever the meeting is in, quite fluently, then I mean it's an easy negotiation. But when you go into a meeting where you don't even feel confident in the language that you speak, yeah, you really just have to make it work. And I just realized that it's really important for me to. I obviously, I mean, in the Netherlands, you get you come by with English a lot as well, but you also, I love it when they say, when in Rome, do like the Romans. And that was something that I wanted to adapt to the culture as well. And it's still an ongoing process, but I think we've learned a lot in the last 8 months.
Yeah, and adapting is something that you do really well, clearly, and almost look for. And it seems like you seek out change and growth while other people might shy away from those things. So when we talk about branding, because I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask this, even though it might be a little bit tangential to um, the crux of this conversation, but you're a multifaceted entrepreneur. So um, when we talk about branding, you started really like within the music scene in South Africa and branding individuals. And now you're working and branding organizations as well, your own and others. Are there any fundamental differences or anything that surprised you, or challenges that popped up in terms of the difference between those two things, or were they or similarities between those two things?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that a brand is a brand is a brand. And if it's an artist or if it's an organization, if it's a small client or a big client, they all take it as serious as you do. And a plan of action is always needed. And yeah, key factors that is important will be important for a small one or a big one as well. So I think there's a lot of golden threads pulling through. And for me, I actually found it since working more in the corporate environment, I find that it's now more difficult to do branding for an artist. That I mean, it's something that I've been doing for so many years.
Hmm.
It felt much easier to do branding for an organization because then you determine the voice. Where an
Yeah.
artist, that's such a personal thing. It's yeah, you just need that. I still find it difficult when we have artist clients coming and asking that if can we do their social media.
Right.
It's just much more easier for a business than yeah, for doing it for an individual.
Right, because you have to find their voice as opposed to the organization having a voice. And I would imagine internal branding, in terms of building culture, it's
Mm.
it's another sort of tricky step where you have to incorporate everyone's voice in a way. I think that's absolutely fascinating. You have more love coming in the chat. You have an amazing skill where you learn what each employee's strong points and downfalls are, and you know where to push, and where not to, and where to help them grow. I think that's awesome, and it comes that individualized care and management, and so and sort of like situational leadership. Um, when we're talking about branding and talking about the voice and having to individualize the voice, I could imagine that would be more difficult as you are physically distanced from your employees and might not, or might fear that you're losing touch or don't know them as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that it is a constant fear that you have, and yeah, touching base on a personal level puts that at ease. But yeah, it's a challenge, and I think it will be a challenge for a lot of years to come because also with the world and environment changing, things it won't necessarily go back to normal. We will be finding a new normal, and that will be quite a big change.
Yeah. Love the accent. Oh, thank you. It's a Baltimore accent. Oh, I think it was. This is directed at you.
No, I hope not. You have a really awesome accent, David.
Yeah. So this is absolutely great. So what is the future of the marketing zoo? Where do you see yourself going? Because you danced around it a bit and said like you don't know where it's going and you have to be open to where it's going. But look into your magic crystal ball for a second and tell us the possibilities. Where do you think and or hope that things are going for your organization?
Well, expanding on the global field is something that we're really focusing on because I also believe that that allows the team to work outside of their comfort zones as
Mm.
well. We've seen with our international clients currently. I mean, it also broadens your horizon so much. So yeah, for us, I mean, expanding into the corporate marketing environment, digital media is definitely something that we do have a very big passion for. The entertainment industry has always been a part of me, and it's something that I've just also realized while moving to another country that it's something that will never go away. So the entertainment industry is quite important for me as well, and I would love to make an impact on branding people and making dreams come alive, not only in a corporate environment but also like in the entertainment industry. So I think for the
Yeah.
marketing zoo, I just know that there's big things coming. We're growing, growing, growing. We're going to keep on adapting, taking risks, taking chances, and really just be innovative and creative with all that we have a part of us.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that growth and that continuously challenging yourself and your team, I think that when managed well, which you do, it's an antidote to burnout. A lot of people think that that's something that causes burnout, but having those challenges and that growth, a lot of times is exactly the opposite. It's an antidote. And as one of your international clients, I could say that since working with you, I've learned about so many U.S. holidays I never knew existed. Because I'll get like an email like, "Is this a holiday that we should post something about? And what should we say?" And I'm like, I don't know. So I'll Google and be like, "Oh, that is a holiday." So your people definitely put in the footwork and do their research and expand and I think it's always inspiring to see and to be sort of a fly on the wall for that. It is really amazing for this growing company.
Oh, thanks a lot, David. It's really inspiring for me as well. I've got so much respect for our Zoolanders, and I don't have kids yet, but the mother hen always believes that her chicks are the best, and I feel that way about our Zoolanders. I really think that we've got a very top and a world class team, carefully put together, and I'm extremely proud. I mean, I think if it wasn't for, well, I don't think I know if it wasn't for the team, we wouldn't have been able to get the wings that we got.
Yeah, that well said. I concur. They are absolutely great. As a father of five, I would be happy to trade my hens for yours. No, I wouldn't. That's not true. That's not true. But they are absolutely great. So, how can people get in touch with you? Besides for lifting their phone and hovering over your QR code right there, which will take you to the Marketing Zoo's website. What other ways can people reach out to you if they're interested in expanding on their branding and marketing, or perhaps just looking for some advice on how to manage their virtual teams and expand their business?
Well, like I said, people can definitely scan this QR code. I love it. Thank you for that, David. And then, yeah, we're all over social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, our website, marketingzoo.net. And also, we've got a really easy email. You can just send an email to hello@marketingzoo.net, and we would love to hear from you.
Perfect. We're going to come back to you in a second for some final thoughts and potentially some homework for us. But I want to encourage everybody to tune in next week when we have Penny Zenker, the Focusologist, here with us. This is really exciting. It's bizarre that we're already getting into December, but there's nobody that I think would be more valuable to speak with on December 1st as we're all planning for the new year for ourselves and our organizations than Penny. She's absolutely amazing in terms of her focus on focus. Her focus on focus, planning, productivity, and she doesn't just talk about it in terms of the tools of the trade that you need to use, but also with mindset, and she works it all together. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I hope that you can all be here for next week's discussion, same time, right here at the WaterCooler. Wian, tell us final thoughts and homework.
Well, one of my final thoughts are I'm super amped for the discussion next week. I think it's great, especially in December when we have lost a little bit of focus. It's the last bit of the journey before the year ends, so I'm looking forward to the session. And some final thoughts is I really want people to think about how you treat other people. I mean, it's crazy enough in the world. You can be a difference if you at least just be friendly and care for someone's feelings. And then think about the trust that you have for people. The trust, like in a good marriage, it's the recipe for long-term success. And I really encourage people to trust each other. And if the trust isn't there, then to build that and get that done. So that's the homework for the week. And I would love to hear more about that.
Great. Build trust and build relationships. And you don't need to be in person or even on the same continent to do it. I love it. Thank you so much. People, please reach out to the Marketing Zoo and to Wian. They're there and they are absolutely amazing. This is my personal testimonial for them. And I didn't even get a discount for bringing them on. This was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to share this man's journey and wisdom with all of you. And so I hope it was as valuable for you as it was for me. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.